All right, so I've in another video I showed how to connect with um, a non-existent connection string or a very short using defaults group suffix option of the MySQL client, and that utilizes your .my.cnf file in your home directory, and so you can kind of get all your connection strings set up. So you can check out that other video to see how to do that. So I've already connected, and I just wanted to show you just a very few basic things that I would do if I were just starting in MySQL. So first of all, how do I know what my databases are? I would run show databases with a semicolon, hit enter. I'm not going to show you all my databases. So let's create a database. So one thing I thought I'd point out is I typically don't like to just give, say, WordPress open reign over my database server. Maybe that makes sense if the database server is dedicated to the WordPress instance or something, but I kind of just like to be a little more restrictive about it. So I'll go ahead and come into my database server and say create database Brian test. All right. So then I want to use a certain database, and I could say use Brian test. A lot of times you'll see examples of everything in uppercase, all the commands in uppercase. Well, I can't think of any relational database or RDBMS that requires that uppercase, but it maybe is nice to distinguish the SQL statements from the objects in the database or something, but I'm just lazy. So now we're in this Brian test database. We could create table, and this is where I don't do a lot of this, so I might fumble. Create table jobs, and I think I could do int job num car 255 title. Let's see how that does. Int for pause for just a second. So I fixed up my create table statement. Grab one off Google. So your column name is the first argument, and then your data type. I had those backwards. So here you go. If you just don't end the line with a semicolon, well, it's going to bark at you, or really won't bark until you try to finally figure out that you need a semicolon, and by then you've entered in a bunch of nasty characters. Like I just see these dash greater thans I need to remove. Let's see. Let's try that. Okay, so now we can do show tables. We have the pet table, and we can do show create table pet. One thing that you can do as well as you create the table is create little notes for each field, and also for the whole table. So you could be more descriptive and helpful here in your once you run show create table, so that you could remember what each field is for, stuff like that. All right, so how are we going to give WordPress access to this? Well, we could say, well, you need to have the grant privilege, and if you're root or admin on the database, well, then you have the ability to do that. The database administrator might also simply grant your user, say a DBA user or something, privileges to grant permissions on a database. So I'm going to grant select insert update delete to pet owner, wrong, on pet.star. Of course, that could be star.star if you wanted to give them access to the whole database, but pet.star restricts it to this database to the pet owner at, and now here's the tricky thing. So MySQL cares what host the client is coming from. You could restrict it to a certain IP address, or you could do, and you want to put this in quotes, unless you do something, yeah, you probably just, you could put, yeah, you could just put an IP address here, well, blah, blah, blah. But if you're going to do any sort of pattern, which is what I want to show you, you'll want some kind of quoting. Excuse me. So % would mean pet owner can connect to this database from anywhere. Of course, any firewall rules, or if the database server does not have a public IP address and it's not natted, all those restrictions will remain in force. But assuming this thing was on the wide open internet, you could, this % sign would mean anybody on the internet could connect. You could restrict it to like 172.44. Something, and that would restrict it on down to that subnet. So it doesn't use like CIDRs, it just uses kind of patterns. So let's just say from anywhere identified by some password. All right. And that password is going to go ahead and be hashed for you in this as you create this privilege. All right. Woo. Well, first try. Man. All right. So now I can show privileges. And show grants for pet owner at %. So if you, as far as I know, you have to put this pet owner at % exactly like it is in the grants or the user table or the DB table in the MySQL database. All MySQL servers are going to have a MySQL database. You can actually go in there and edit or update the tables manually, but then if you do that, you need to run flush tables for it to, oh, sorry, I don't know what that does. Flush privileges, and that will go and have it reread all the MySQL tables and everything and apply those privileges. But so in other words, I can't just say show grants for pet owner. I need to give it also the at IP or at % and make it match how the grant was made in the first place. That's to the best of my knowledge. So we can see that we have usage on any database, but not really. All that means is kind of I have some permissions to log in with this password hash, but I have the grant select insert update delete. You can also say grant all privileges to pet owner. You can say set password. Actually, you can use help in MySQL to give you more information. Help select semicolon will give you help about the select statement. All right. So there you go. I guess insert, well, you can also use describe pets Pet. So I see that I don't have a key in this table. I don't see any of these that have to be unique. So there's not many constraints here in this example table. Let's see if I can insert into pet values. Really, I haven't done this in a good little while, but let's just try this. Pet Buffy and Trisha, dog, male. So this is a date, 2005, 0506, oops, 6, and death. We're going to leave death blank and see if it complains. Or, I don't think it would complain. So let's just say now. You see if that now function works. I think that's a thing. There you go. So then we can say select star from pet and see that one record. We could like limit 1. Of course, we only have 1 record. Hey, but look, we could do lots of these. You can also insert a lot of records, multiple records in one statement as well. I won't get into that, but limit 3. So we select the first 3 records. I could, boy, I wish you could also do a comma and so this shows 5 records beginning at the 3rd record. All right. And you can sort and all that, but since we have just a bunch of records that are all the same, we can't demo that at all. All right, so I want to quit. And I want to, sorry, that's my son in the background. It's bath time. So let's say I want to MySQL dump this database so that I could back it up or send it over to another database server and import it. I could dump it with, so I need to specify my database. So it's Brian test. Go to temp, Brian test. This is an arbitrary name here, SQL. And let's just see how that works. All right, so I want a less temp Brian test. So it shows me a lot of information, but then it's not going to create the database for me. So on the import, if I were to re-import this thing, I would need to have that database created, have the privileges to get to it. But it's going to go ahead and drop the pet table, and then it's going to recreate the pet table. And then it's going to, excuse me, insert into pet. And you see here the example of inserting multiple records at once. Parentheses, close parentheses, comma, a new record, over and over until it's done. And if we had many tables, we would do this over and over and over. To import the database, I'm just going to import it right on top of itself. So the first greater than sign is an output redirection operator. It's going to send that output. It would have just splattered all over the screen, but with this output redirection, we send it to this file. With the less than, we're going to bring it in from that file to this same database. It could be another database name, but that database has to exist or else it'll give you an error. And we are no longer using MySQL dump, but MySQL. Okay. And again, this defaults group suffix is there's a tag in my .my.cnf file in my home directory that tells it more details about how to connect to the database. Okay, so let's see what happens. And we can also edit this as well. We could go ahead and create a new record, or we could change the date that this dog died over here and import it again. So here we've amended this record, just adding the text file and then re-importing it. So that's it. That's how to dump a database, select, create database, create a little privilege. And I'm sorry I went a little long. Hope that helps you. I enjoy getting to the MySQL interface from the command line. It's, to me, a little bit handier than some GUI tool, yet another GUI tool. So thanks for watching. And let me know if you have any questions in the comments or on chat. Thanks.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.